All right, boys and girls, today we are making a feather, and when you do that, I will have a whole bunch of examples for you out on the tables of feathers that have been painted with watercolor and of feathers that are just the real photo of it. And what I want you to notice is that in the middle there is what's called the rachis, and we are going to draw that, and then we are also going to be drawing what's called the vein. This is the vein here, and this is the vein here. And so we're going to be drawing the left side of the vein, and we'll also be drawing the right side of the vein. Duh! And then what's super fun at the bottom is to add our down feathers. So let's go ahead and start. A nice way to start is by using a crayon to get your rachis going. We found out with flight feathers that the rachis will be straight, and with flight feathers, it'll be bent. So just for fun, I'll make mine a little bent. I'm using a black crayon, but if you want, you could use white or blue or whatever color kind of makes you happy. You could even do black and do a little bit of white right next to it, and you'll see later on what that does. So I've just drawn a single line. You don't have to start making it wider or anything like that. Now, I have my beautiful watercolors here. They're brand new, so I'm going to ask that you please not mix them, meaning that you go from here to here to here, and then over to here and over to here, and all around the world. Don't do that. Be nice to my watercolors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to dip my paintbrush into the water, and I'm going to look at my feather and say, okay, what is the lightest color in my feather? I see that there's some white here, but there's also some tan. My paper's already white, so I may as well not do that. I could choose tan. If you were doing this one, you might want to choose kind of a light brown or something. I could even choose gray for this one as my lightest color. So I think I'm going to do that. And so I'm going to wet my brush really good. Remember, this is watercolor, so it works better with lots of water. And I'm going to come here and I'm going to draw the left vein first. So I'm going to come and I'm just going to kind of go, ooh. So I'm dipping it in water again because I want it to be kind of wet. Now, what I want you to notice is that I'm hardly touching the paper. I'm not going, I'm just hardly touching the paper. Now what I'm going to do is fill it in. Now you notice that I made my edge kind of jaggedy. You don't have to do that. You can make it flat or straight, whatever you want to do. So I keep dipping in my water because I want this to be nice and wet. I've filled in the left side of my vein. And now I want to go and add some more of these other colors that I see in this feather. I notice that there's some brown, so I'll dip here into the brown color. And I'll come here and I'll just kind of go like this. Now notice that I'm moving my brush at a diagonal, moving down. That's because that's the way the barbs grow on a feather. We don't want to go straight across with our barbs because then it doesn't look very real, and we want ours to look very realistic. So I'm just kind of coming like this and getting some color in here with the brown. Now I also noticed that there was some blue in my feathers, so I'll come over here and get some blue. And I can put that in here too. Now what I want for you to notice is that because we're using watercolor, the paint really does a lot of the work for you. A lot of what's kind of fun about painting a feather, or even looking at a feather, is that how the colors kind of blend. But look here, if I even just take my feather and lift it up, do you see how the paint is starting to run? The paint will really do a lot of wonderful things for you without you even having to mess with it. Sometimes it's even fun just to leave it there and come back and just see what it did. Now, if you look at my feather, there's these little black stripes on it in the design of it. So now I'm going to dip into black, and I'm just going to come straight across here and add that in. Now, the feather you're looking at may not have anything like that. Yours might have little spots, or yours might have like a ring along the top or something like that. You're just going to be true to what you see. And even if it turns out a little bit different, that's okay, because you know what? The feathers are all so different. God's created so many different birds with so many different feathers that even if your feather doesn't end up looking like the one that you were trying to paint, believe me, there's a feather somewhere in the world that looks exactly like yours. So I'm coming here, I'm even taking the black and I'm adding a few more barbs here. And I may just leave this, or I could just kind of come here. I could come along the top and add some barbs here coming this way. I could even come like this and kind of feather it out to make it look like some of the barbs came loose and are kind of feathered out along my feather here. So awesome. So now I get to move over to the other side. So the last time I started with gray, so I'll do the same thing again. So I come and do the right vein this time. And I come all the way down. Again, use plenty of water because that's what makes it so fun, is to watch those colors run. I'm going to put this into the brown again and let that do its happy little dance and through the water. Here we go. Doing some stuff here. Ooh, it's really running now. That's kind of fun. Dip it into my blue, see what happens there. Now this is getting pretty wet. I wouldn't recommend getting too much more wet than that. So I think I'm just gonna leave it. If you start to feel like sometimes it gets too wet, you could almost like take a little paper towel and just do a little dabby, and that will take care of it. Now I'm going to let this dry on its own, but I want to show you something so wonderful down here at the bottom, because we have the rachis. This is the part that attaches to the bird, but we talked about those down feathers that are at the base of the feather, and that provides the bird with insulation and warmth. And that also is when if you paint it, it makes it look so realistic. So look what I'm going to do. I picked up a detail brush, and you'll know the detail one because it'll be smaller. I'm dipping it in the water and putting it in the black. And look what I'm going to do. I'm just going to add these little things coming down here. These are just those little down feathers at the base of the feather. And when I do, I almost like to go, because you're just like hardly touching it. You're acting like, oh my goodness, I'm just like dancing across the paper. If you do that, you just cannot believe how realistic it will make your feather look. People are going to think you've been doing this for years. And you're like, no, just learn today. Now, if you want to, you can always come back and put some more with your brush when it's a little bit drier. Put in a few more barbs. You can go along the edge and define the edge a little bit more. You can do whatever you want. Now, boys and girls, we're going to be all set up for you to do your first feather. And after you've made your first one, I would love for you to make a second one. If you do, you're going to go over to Miss Fairbank, and she will get you a new piece of paper with your name and your class code on the back. When you go to pick it up, notice how when you pick it up, the watercolor runs. So make sure if you pick it up that you hold it nice and flat like this so that the paint doesn't run right off, and then we all have to cry and be sad. All right, have fun.